Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting, 2:30 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Number 2 on the agenda, resolution authorizing payment of $223,561.50 for attorney fees and $61,288.95 for outstanding interest and litigation costs to Tracy Lewis, plaintiff, and David Mitchell Garrett, Law Office, PLLC, and Christopher Camp, attorney at law from the Sinking Fund.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Chad Becker from Treasury. I'm here as always to give council assurance that there's a sufficient cash balance in the sinking fund to pay this judgment ahead of the levy placement on property tax rolls. This judgment has already been approved by the court and by the mayor, and with council's approval, finance will issue payment to the claimant in full and forward the necessary paperwork to the county to levy repayment to the sinking fund over a 3-year period. And Michelle McGrew is joining me this afternoon from City Legal to discuss the case.
Yes, this was a jury verdict from April of 2024. It was a former police major who filed a First Amendment retaliation action, and the jury awarded her damages, and we just got the award of attorney's fees from the judge last Thursday. And so we have made a calculation of the interest and the attorney's fees and what the judge awarded for the attorney's fees and then the litigation costs for a total of, as Chad said, $284,850.45.
Alrighty. Any questions, comments? No? Phil? You don't-
Oh, what the guess is?
Yeah.
I don't know, $74.68 million.
95.2.
Dang,
You were close.
just a rounding error. Next time.
Alrighty, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 3, ordinance amending Title 11C Tulsa Revised Ordinances, Waterworks and Sewerage, amending Chapter 3 titled Water Rates, amending Sections 302 through 307 and 308 to provide water and sewer rate adjustments, amending Chapter 7. Sanitary sewer user charge system, amending Section 702, 703, and 708 to adjust sewer service charge rates. Should I read the 302, 303 and all that? Is that okay to skip to 7? 8, okay. All righty. Who do we have? Anybody speaking on this today? No?
Bueller?
Bueller?
Yeah. Do I have any questions from the council?
Bueller.
Bueller.
It is like the 30th or 40th anniversary.
It is. It was on the news this morning.
Uh-huh.
For Bueller?
So this is, yeah.
So Bueller's here.
Wait a second, 2 weeks in a
Yeah,
row?
we're live.
Yes, this
Yeah,
is.
I'm honored.
Well,
Do we have any trivia related to Bueller that we can ask Mr. Miller before he makes his presentation?
Bueller.
When was the film made?
Come on, you have to do the math.
About 40 years ago.
For Ferris Bueller's Day Off, that's in 83 or 85.
No, it's
It's
86.
86, the 40th year.
I know I saw the
40th anniversary.
She came
I
in
think,
late.
yeah, I think she was saying before she was born is what I'm hearing.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, we all know that.
Name any character other than Ferris.
Sloan.
Great.
What kind of car were they driving?
Yeah.
Ferrari.
That's good.
Right, you've seen
Well-
it a few
All right,
times.
so
You-
we're done?
You passed
now.
that initial test.
All right.
So give us your little
Spiel.
spiel.
Sure, I'm here, I know we've got our water and sewer experts that may be arriving here momentarily, but this is just reflective of the presentation that they made here a month or two ago. This just kind of codifies that, the investment in our water and sewer infrastructure that we need, and this is the rates that reflect that. Those previous discussions, I'm happy to answer any question.
That's the 7%, is that correct?
So I'd have to pull her back because, thank you.
Okay. Who are we waiting on?
Here it is behind you.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a 3 and a, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, 3 and 6, and then stormwater is in a separate one. So again, you have had lengthy presentations from the experts who may join us in a little bit if you have further questions, but this is the rates that reflect the previous discussion and are, we do have close to $500 million in infrastructure in the 5-year water sewer plan, and this helps fund that over time.
Is that also including the new water meters?
Water meters are part of the capital plan, yes.
Alrighty. Any questions, comments? Just one more added expense to your paycheck, guys. All right, moving on to item number 4. License agreement between the City of Tulsa and Julian Nickel for property located at 2525 East 30th Street, South Lewis Park Addition, to install, use, and maintain a decorative concrete driveway with Bowmanite exposed aggregate finish and a brick paver sidewalk within the street right away, CD4.
Naturally, it's in District
Of
4.
course.
I do like a decorative driveway.
All right, Paul Zachary, Public Works. Pretty straightforward. She just wants a nice Bowmanite exposed aggregate finish concrete. We just went through the fact that if there's any ever need for any right-of-way occupants to need to go through her area, they will only restore it back to just normal concrete as opposed to this boutique Bowmanite concrete. So, but we got no objections from any of the utilities and any representatives of various boards and commissions, so we would recommend approval of this license agreement.
Well, that's a pretty nice driveway.
Oh,
What
you
the
like-
Very
heck is
nice.
Bowmanite?
Yeah, I'm curious as well.
Bowmanite's kind of a specialty concrete. It's got sometimes integral colors in it. It also has a special retarders and admixtures to it. It's not just, it's not as nice as our plain gray concrete that we just have, you know. But some people like the Bowmanite stuff.
Is it heat resistant
It's-
or
it's
it's just
textured.
got some
Yeah,
properties in it?
it's supposed to be a little, it's more expensive. It's just, we just call it kind of a boutique. It's got more admixtures in it for hardening and color fast.
It sounds like it can be
That's
used to
the main thing.
imitate.
Huh?
It sounds like it can be used, I looked it up, to imitate like even higher end,
Yeah.
like, you know, like
It's
materials.
bougie cement is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Pinky out, sir.
All right.
Well, it has a longer lifespan, and it's textured, isn't it?
I'm sure. It can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it can be made just plain, but generally it allows to, if it gets chipped, you still got color in it. It's
Yeah.
color integral and stuff like
You know,
that.
can I make a quick proposal? Someday, we should get a list of all of these decorative driveways and do a lovely decorative driveway tour of the city. People have doorways, stairways. I've never ended up knowing what these
You
look
guys keep
like.
track of that?
Yeah.
Of who has these, I mean, is there
Yeah,
like
they
a?
must. They have to put a
When you
license.
do these,
An
we have all,
Excel?
we have all the license agreements, so
I mean, there's no Excel sheet or anything like
I
that?
think the Tulsa
It
Foundation for
is a
Architecture is
database,
missing a
like
real
all the
opportunity.
Excel.
So you can do a search?
yeah, it could be Google
Scavenger
Sheets
hunt.
or something.
All right. Okay, we'll do a scavenger hunt,
Alright.
thank you.
Okay.
Always the greatest thoughts at this table.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Moving on to item number 5, ordinance amending Title 24 Tulsa Revised Ordinances nuisances by adopting new Chapter 5 Municipal Code Lien Enforcement Procedure, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability and establishing an effective date. Brought to you by the mayor, Mayor Nichols, Bellis, Counselor Dr. Wright, Counselor Lakin, and Counselor Bush.
All right. I'm trying to get with.
Let me get out of the way.
There we go. All right. Hello, counselors. Oops. That's not where I wanted to
Hello,
start.
James.
Move back. Giving away the slides that are later on. All right.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Kind of like, what was that, Survivor?
Yeah.
Remember?
Go back, go back.
He got on there and announced
We'll
the
get
winner.
there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Can't do that. Oops.
All right, so hello, counselors. James Wagner, I'm the Director of the Planning and Neighborhoods Department. And I'm here today to talk about a program that we're proposing, and a little bit of, I guess, background on this. There was a state law that was passed last year that essentially enables municipalities to foreclose on properties where there are outstanding abatement liens and where they are not homeowner occupied. And so one thing I want to make really clear kind of from the outset is that we're talking about vacant properties. So we've really embedded that into the name of this program to make it really clear that we're talking about vacant properties. And so we're calling this the Vacancy Improvement Program, but we're talking about, vacant, dilapidated, abandoned structures mainly. Or it could be even like a vacant lot. I want to also just say thank you to the mayor who helped with getting the law through the legislature to enable us to do this, but also to the Habitability Working Group, Councilors Bellis, Dr. Wright, Bush, and Lakin, who helped to really kind of give some feedback on this so that we could make this presentation as good as it could be, and also Councilor Dutton and Hall Harper, who hosted a couple of town hall meetings to get input from community members. So we've been working on this for probably 6 or 8 months now. And I will say, that feedback has helped make this program better. And there have been some things that we've adapted even before bringing it to you today so that we could make it as strong a proposal as we could. So this program is really kind of going to accomplish 2 goals simultaneously. One is that it will be able to help us with those abandoned, dilapidated houses, get those into productive use, and then also kind of stop the cycle of those tall grass and weeds complaints and illegal dumping on vacant properties. And so do you need a?
I do, I
you need
didn't get a handout.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure you get one. So I've got one here.
Thank you.
Again, we're focusing on vacant properties. Want to make sure that that's clear. So as far as the presentation goes today, I'll just kind of walk through. We'll talk about the goals of the program, and then I want to show you kind of like what some ideal properties are that we're talking about that would fit into this, because it's a pretty narrow scope that we're talking about in terms of properties, but I want to show you some examples of those. And then I want to take you through a little bit of the process, and I want to contrast what happens with the annual county tax sale. Some of you may be familiar with that. It just happened this week, actually, with what this process would look like in terms of making sure that there is responsible ownership in the properties that we're talking about. And then finally we'll kind of wrap up with how do we make sure that we're not only getting responsible ownership, but also potentially an affordable housing unit as well, so we can meet multiple goals, not only having properties that are better maintained, but also an affordable housing unit. So a few of the goals. One is to increase affordable housing. 2, reduce those vacant, abandoned, and dilapidated properties. 3, disrupt that cycle of property owners buying properties and allowing them to become dilapidated. And then really also making sure that we have good use of our own city resources. We spend a lot of resources checking on properties that are not maintained. A lot of grants resources and code enforcement, as well as the finance department, who we have to send out invoices when we do abatements, and then file liens whenever those invoices aren't paid, and also of course police and fire. So the more we're able to more effectively get properties that aren't being well maintained into productive use, that is a good thing all the way around. So I talked a little bit about what are we talking about when we say an ideal property. So for one, the state law mandates that it has to have more than $1,500 worth of abatement liens. And I'll show you an illustration in a minute about how that might occur. And we added here in less than 3 years, and that'll become clear here in a minute, because what we're really talking about is trying to speed up the process of what would normally happen at the tax sale, in addition to the $1,500 minimum. So, in other words, we're not going to be doing this process to any property that just has, one mowing or something like that. That isn't going to trigger this. It has to be a lot more than that to kind of get on the radar. 2, it's eligible for the tax sale, but the owner has paid the oldest year's taxes. This is a pretty common thing, and I think in the tax sale that just happened this week,
I think there were about 1,300 properties initially. Of course, this is countywide, this is just the city of Tulsa, but 1,300 properties initially. And I think about half of those were paid before the tax sale happened, but not paid in full necessarily, but maybe the oldest year. So, so that potentially just happens year after year after year, and then we're still going out and doing abatements, you know, over that course of that year. Or it's sold, but then we continue to have nuisance abatements with a new owner. So either one of those. And then finally, as like I try overemphasizing it, but an unoccupied and vacant property. We're not talking about properties where people live. We're not talking about properties where people own their homes. So we're talking about vacant property. So that's kind of the ideal.
Are you talking about vacant property?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
yes.
vacant property.
Yes, vacant property. So I'll give you some examples. So just these are two examples that I just pulled from our code cases to kind of illustrate for you what we're talking about. So this first property had 4 abatement liens for various amounts. The largest of those was for a cleanup. You can see the debris. It's had the same owner since 2002. It's been boarded since 2023. And it hadn't had utilities since 2022. So, you know, it's been, you know, kind of a recurring issue for quite some time, but also hasn't really, you know, changed ownership. And so it's got a lot of liens, and so this would be the kind of property we're talking about. It's been vacant for a while. Another example, kind of a similar one, not as much in liens on this one, but this one has had the same ownership for even longer. It's been boarded for a couple years and no utilities since January of last year. So you can see there's 2 different photos from 2 different times in 2024 where where the grass was growing up high and we were having to mow this. This was also an unsecured structure. You can see that's one of our contractors actually just kind of demonstrating that this is an open structure. So this is what we're talking about, these kind of properties. And these are the kind of properties that really, under different ownership, could potentially be rehabbed and, you know, put into productive use. So we're going to talk about how we might get to that point. So the next slide is actually one of the handouts that I've given you, so you can kind of follow along with that. And what I want to do here is contrast what happens now with the county tax sale with what we could do with this new law and the ordinance that's in front of you now. So in this illustrative example, you can kind of imagine like in a typical growing season, a summer, we might have 2, maybe 3, in this case there's 2, mowings. So there's, you know, we're gonna get a complaint, we're gonna respond to it, we're gonna mow the property, we're gonna bill the owner, but then if the owner doesn't pay, then we're placing a lien on that property. So in year 1, that adds up to $1,000. In year 2, same thing happens again, another $1,000. In year 3, now we have $3,000. So those liens get kind of converted to essentially a piece of the ad valorem tax at the county, and then it would go on to the tax auction, the one that just happened this week. But as I said before, the owner could just then pay the oldest year, and you know we would just go on and do it the next year, just repeat over and over and over. Or it could be sold if the owner didn't, you know, pay anything. So that is an option as well. But still, even if there's a new owner, this cycle can kind of continue on. So that's kind of what we have now. In this process, kind of imagine the same rate of abatement. So, you know, we're getting a couple of mowings in the first year and then another one the second year. Now we're only 18 months in, and we have reached the point where we could start this process. So there is a provision, though, in the law that says that we have a 6-month kind of cooling off period before we can actually file any kind of foreclosure. And this is actually one of the pieces of an improvement that came out of having some meetings with community members. So during this 6-month waiting period, we would then start reaching out to the owner, and we would say, look, here's the situation. We've got, you know, liens that have piled up here. Could we potentially connect you with some people that we would vet, and I'll show you how we're going to do that here in a minute, to purchase this property and make it a productive, affordable housing unit. If the owner engages with that, great. We don't even have to file a foreclosure. We can just move on. If they don't, then we would have then the ability to notice all the interested parties, the owner and any kind of mortgage lien holders or anyone like that, and then move on with a foreclosure, which would ultimately result in a sheriff's sale. Now, we would have to spend some money on our own part to do that. So we've kind of estimated it might be around $60 to $200 to do that. But if we can get a productive, housing unit out of it and have like not the abatements over and over and over, I think in the long run, that would be a good investment. So I'm gonna move now to kind of what that sheriff's sale process might look like, so you can kind of see what that looks like. So, as you know, and then I'm gonna kind of connect right now with some of the other housing investments we're making. As you know, we've got $47 million in housing funds that are under contract with the Tulsa Housing Impact Fund, and we're starting to deploy those funds. There is a piece of those that is specifically set aside for rehabilitation and preservation of affordable housing. And so we've started to talk with the Tulsa Housing Impact Fund about how could we use those funds to incentivize a potential developer to purchase one of these properties, fix it up, rehabilitate it, and then keep it affordable for a period of time. Now, the details of that we have not worked out yet, as far as how long would that be, so that's still in the works. But that would be the first thing, is set up the affordability criteria so that a potential buyer of one of these properties would be able to know, here's the parameters that I'd be working within if I decided to go and purchase this property. So that would be step one. Step two is we would need to create a list of these developers. So we would probably put out a request for information that would just kind of give us an idea of who is out there that would like to participate in a program like this, so that we could develop a list and then be sharing that list with property owners who might find themselves in a situation where they couldn't rehab this house themselves, but could potentially make a private transaction to sell a property to someone who could. And then we contact them, offer to connect them, and we are doing this a little bit now, even with our dilapidated structures program. We have a list of potential developers that we're connecting owners with, and then only then, at that point, if there's no really response or no interest, from the owner, and sometimes it's very difficult to get in touch with owners. There's lots of complicated situations, right, where owners are hard to get in touch with. Then we could initiate the foreclosure process. So we've done a lot of work up front to do everything we can to get that property off of High Center. And then if we really can't get there, then we would start the foreclosure process that would ultimately result in the sheriff's sale. So then the question is, well, how do you make sure that at the sheriff's sale, somebody doesn't just come by it and repeat the process over again, right? So a couple different options there. Obviously, we would notify our list of potential developers, hey, there's going to be a potential property that's going to be on the sheriff's sale on this day. If you go and bid on this property, you could potentially get one of the grants from the Tulsa Housing Impact Fund, and hopefully that someone would do that. But we can't really control the outcome of the sheriff's sale. That is, that's whoever bids on properties bids on properties. So even if that doesn't happen, and the successful bidder is not on the city's list, we could still reach out to them and offer, to connect them with the Housing Impact Fund for a grant or a loan, so that they could move forward with that. And then sort of I put there as an alternative, although I would say this is strongly not my preference, that the city would purchase this property. Now, that is a possibility, but it is not the ideal situation. We are not developers. We're not, really equipped to do that. That isn't what the city's really has a strong suit in doing that. But if there were no other bidders, if there was no one else interested, that could be potentially an option. And then finally, I want to just point out there's a bunch of other things we're doing to kind of provide resources for people who are wanting to do this kind of thing. So obviously the pre-approved plans program, this would be for like a vacant lot situation, not necessarily a vacant structure, but a vacant lot. We are very close to being able to offer those plans to people that want them, so they can go and get a set of housing plans to be able to build an affordable housing unit. The neighborhood infill overlay expansion is another policy tool that we're working on. And as I mentioned, the IoT3 rehab grants and loans. And then we're also working on a permit fee reimbursement program, which would potentially reimburse a portion of the permit fees that developers incur if they commit to an affordable housing unit. So again, really kind of the summary is, we're trying to solve kind of two problems at once. One is vacant, abandoned, dilapidated structures and or lots that are not maintained, but also, how can we create an affordable housing unit as a result of that. It's giving us a new tool essentially to be able to do that. We still have all the tools that we've had before. We still have the ability, if we need to demolish a property. We've had that for a long time. But this is kind of a tool that would give us a different way to, get a property back into productive use and really, keep a neighborhood more stable as a result of it. So again, thank you to the Habitability Working Group for your input on making this program better, and to the mayor for kind of being able to provide the backup to get this through the legislature to be able to offer it to you all as a tool. So there's an ordinance that goes along with it that basically just says, we're going to implement the state law as it's written, is more or less what it says. But that's what we're here to talk about today. So that's what I've got.
Alrighty. Do we have a queue of questions from counselors? No? Okay.
Only 4 of us worked on it, so
Yeah.
it's mostly for those of you who are getting this information for the first time.
No, I appreciate it, and actually, I will say that when Counselor Hall Harper and myself presented it, the biggest pushback was the developers, and who are they, and are they gonna be vetted, and are they gonna be speculators, the ones that text everybody all the time about buying their homes and things like that, so I appreciate the efforts going forward into this to actually sort of vet the possible developers. We want good actors and not bad actors.
Yeah, prioritize it,
Yes.
those in the community.
Yeah.
Counselor Bellis?
Yeah, more than a question, just wanted to highlight 2 things. One, when it comes to addressing, vacant, dilapidated properties, we don't have that many tools in our tool belt, so I'm glad that we now have this mechanism, which I know HB 2147 from not this past legislative session, but the prior one, something that Mayor Nichols and Shane spent a lot of time, having fun at the Capitol, making happen, so I appreciate that we were able to get another tool to do something, and I think there's still so much else we need to do, but wanted to acknowledge that, that really paved the way for all this to happen. And then 2, I also see this as a mechanism for historic preservation. I've watched very historic houses where maybe it was someone older who passes away, doesn't have, whatever family, and you just watch that house rot to pieces. And so I really appreciate that this is also something that can help with historic preservation of some pretty historically significant properties that now can actually much more quickly be rehabilitated instead of just sitting and falling apart, so that's exciting. So thank you so much for all of your diligent work on this, James, it's exciting.
If I can just build on that, looking back to the housing study, that led us to the 13,000 units, one of the things that it pointed out very specifically in there is that, preserving affordable housing is just as important as creating, new affordable housing units. And so, in this case, it's kind of like you're kind of doing both at the same time, because you're taking a vacant structure, which isn't being occupied, and you're, breathing new life into it with a new owner and potentially a grantor loan. So yes, I thank you for pointing that out.
Alrighty, well, thank you, James, for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for your
Yeah,
partnership.
that's good. Is this for owner-occupied homes, or is this just?
Just for squirrel and cat occupied homes, from what I've seen.
Define unoccupied.
Oh, that's what the V is.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Trying to know how our working group meetings went.
Yeah, very productive, I can tell.
Just dad jokes.
Dorks like Phil.
Alrighty, moving on to agenda item number 6. Ordinance amending Title 11, Tulsa Revised Ordinances, Public Works Department, Chapter 9, Street Maintenance, Section 901, Special Review Fund for Maintenancing and Repair of Public Ways, directing that in addition to 1% of Public Service Company of Oklahoma, PSO gross receipts, 0.9% of 0.9% of Oklahoma Natural Gas Company, ONG, gross receipts shall be remitted into the fund, amending the purposes of the fund, requiring annual approval of a 5-year plan for the use of funds. Providing this ordinance shall be void if the ONG franchise is not approved by voters, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for severability. Counselor Gilbert, Bengal, and Lakin. Alrighty, do we have Miss Sarah at the table?
Sarah Davis, Council Administrator. And so councilors, you'll remember the ONG franchise is up this year and on for a public vote. And we've actually talked about this ordinance already at committee, just not in its ordinance form. And so there are 3 pieces of legislation that you needed to do for the franchise. The first 2 are done, so that was the franchise agreement and the resolution calling the election, and confirmed that's been delivered to the election board, and that will be in August. The last piece is the assurance for the voters on what the funds would be used for, the additional funds that would come from the franchise agreement. And that comes through a Brown ordinance, and it partially does, one, to provide that voter assurance, but it's going into the same fund that the PSO additional revenue goes into that you passed a few years ago, and that's the Public Ways Fund. In order to do that amendment, we needed to do the Brown ordinance process, so it is on committee, but we've already had the public hearings for that process as well as the press conference. So if you just want to look at the language a little bit, some of the language was already in the ordinance from the PSO franchise, but the language is added verbatim from the ONG franchise, that the funds would be used for maintenance, repair, and improvement of public ways, including median maintenance, enhancements, streetscaping, landscaping, lighting, repair and replacement, sidewalks, and corridor enhancement and beautification. And how this will work is the mayor or his designee, likely the Public Works Department, will come up with a 5-year plan to equitably distribute the funds across districts. The council will receive that plan around budget time and approve it, and there's a provision for that in the ordinance as well. So it provides a little bit even more transparency than there already was regarding how the funds will be used if the voters decide to approve this. That's all I really have. So this will be on first read tonight and on second reading next week.
Any questions, comments? Nope. All right.
Thank you, Sarah, for all your hard work on this. Appreciate it.
Oh, we are still at community conversations. If anybody has questions, one more community conversation about the franchise, ONG has a table there.
When is that?
The next one is the 23rd, I believe,
Where?
on the Tuesday at the Dream Center.
Oh, okay.
28th,
23rd,
Third.
a Tuesday.
Dream Center.
5:30? 5:30.
Thank you, Sarah.
All righty. All right, moving on to item number 7. Addendum discussion regarding the proposed fiscal year 2026-2027 budget and capital plan, Public Works.
I'm just gonna come back.
Okay, and switch sides.
To the other side?
Musical
That's funny.
It's like changing hats.
Yeah, I need to switch my documents. Sarah Davis, Council Administrator. I received a request to put the budget item for general discussion back on the agenda. I know there were some modifications and additional interests that councilors had that people wanted to talk through. So not sure if there was a member of the small budget committee who wanted to do that, or if you would like me to do that, however you would like to proceed.
I mean, I can just kick it off. So we met this morning because we've heard from community and from, conversations that we might not be exactly on the touchdown line today. So some things I think around code enforcement and animal welfare, we just need to amplify what's being done. I think community members are getting their news in little snatches, and we need to do a better job communicating, like we've heard you, we know we need to do more, and these are the things that we're doing. So I think that's a communication issue more than a budgeting issue. Of course, throughout the year, if something comes up, we can be responsive. Some of the other elements that have come up, we had a big discussion at the 10:30 about how we're funding our homelessness initiatives, really focused in on Safe Move Tulsa. I think some of us who are a little bit at the 30,000 mile view are also like, and what are we doing for utility assistance and eviction mitigation and some of the other policy work that at this table we've talked about for many, many years. So I think I would love to hear from people that have ideas around those things, and we can talk with Sarah about how those things may be able to be funded. I think there's some public safety issues that we still have not gotten exactly where we need to be, especially given just at the start of the summer, kind of some of the stuff that's going on. I think it would be wise for us to have a conversation around that as well. So I'll just kick it off there, if you guys want to add on that before we go into the big discussion. I think that's a good idea.
No, I think you summarized it pretty well, some of the concerns that we were talking about, some of the contributors to homelessness, the low hanging fruit that we can deal with where the barriers are much lower. Those are programs we should be looking at and funding as part of our homeless initiatives, and where we're focusing that funding. CDBG dollars, I can never get that acronym right half the time, but how we fund those, because my view is, and I think Counselor Dr. Wright said this earlier, some of the things that I'm hearing is that we're funding this at such a high level, but folks, as we're raising rates on their utilities, but their cost of livings aren't keeping up, and costs of groceries and things keep going up as well. They need assistance, and they feel like, hey, there are people who've made some potentially poor decisions in their life, and we're taking care of everything for them, but they need that help, and so they potentially are going to be in that same boat as those folks, but they just need that little bit of help. So, and then the public safety aspect, I'll let you talk about, Counselor.
Yeah, Counselor Gilbert and I were supposed to have a conversation this morning with some various individuals. That's been delayed. We may have more information later today or tomorrow. I hope it's not a dramatic change. We're just trying to figure out how we cause people to abide by the law, especially on trails and sidewalks where e-bikes and e-scooters are traveling at 25 to 45 miles an hour. And they've already created physical harm, but death is not very far away if we're not careful in regulating those kinds of devices. We already have laws, but it just takes a little bit more enforcement. I would say that what we didn't want to do is come to the table at 5 o'clock and suggest amendments on the fly. This time would have given us more time to discuss those things, but we're just not far enough along. So my hope is that we have further discussion either at 10:30, 1 o'clock, or 2:30 next week, get things finalized around this table so that we know what we're walking into at 5 o'clock, and that we don't have any surprises for anybody in the council or in the mayor's office.
Yeah, I appreciate going forward with the staffing that we're doing for animal welfare, as well as code enforcement. I would like to see even greater upstaffing of code enforcement, simply because that is at the actual citizen level. And that's where our communities and our constituents, from my perspective, have the biggest issues. And I would really like to see a better way for us to go forward to ensure that we do have adequate staffing to make sure we don't have this constant backlog. And I think that's one of those things that, as a city, I think that will also allow our constituents and our citizens to feel heard, to feel really heard. As it is right now, they do not feel heard. And so I'm appreciative of efforts to staff up.
That's the #1 complaint.
Yeah, that's what I get all the time.
Time lapse with code enforcement.
And the
it's not
frustration.
code enforcement's problem.
Yeah.
No,
It's-
that they're understaffed. I think one of the challenges I've always had at this table is, well, the departments requested this and that's what they got. But I think we also know departments get pressured to ask for what they can get. And it's our responsibility to match what they can get with what the citizens need. And
Yes.
if we have to push, then we need to
Yeah,
push.
yeah.
And if it means just contracting during the high grass and weed months, something. I mean, I think code enforcement's doing what's asked of them when they prepare their budget, but every department's asked to hold the line. And I think it's our job to push in those areas that are still underserved.
Yeah.
There's more needs always in dollars, but it's our responsibility to prioritize those dollars and maximize them. And I think
Yeah.
I appreciate maybe that we get another week to just finalize some of these things. I did also want to throw out there that I believe there's some movement around maybe implementing a drug court at the municipal level. That's gonna need funding. I don't think they're ready to like put dollar ask in front of us, but it's not gonna be inexpensive. I think the ROI on something of that, especially when we go back to what's causing homelessness. We have a lot of people deep in addiction that then have a cascade of challenges. And if we continue to just keep them on that hamster wheel,
Yep.
it's not going to change. We have very compassionate judges. We've got a new prosecutor. I just think being smart with the dollars we have and doing the whole comprehensive approach of keeping people housed, keeping people who are just one or two disasters away from then ending up in a shelter, and then we have to get them through rapid rehousing. Like, I hear what you're saying, Counselor. I have constituents too, I was like, well, until I fall through the safety net, there's no help for me. So I think we need to be thoughtful.
So to that, I think also that goes along with wanting to increase code enforcement, and that we're showing citizens that are actually contributors in the community that we care about them as well. That I think with the housing situation right now and the evictions and whatnot, I think it's a huge, serious problem.
So I have a dollar amount for that program.
For eviction.
For eviction, yeah, not for the
Mitigation.
code enforcement side, but yeah, if I could, just as two things, and one of these is like a long ongoing project that I'll just mention, I wanna make sure everyone's like super abreast of, and then the other is something that I've talked with more recently about, with Counselor Bengal and Counselor Archie a bit, but first related to the evictions, several of us have worked on eviction prevention for a long time. Myself and James Wagner both participated in a sprint about, like kind of legal representation policy. We came up with a framework. We've gone a few rounds on this, but the biggest thing is that a program that could serve low-income landlords and tenants with civil legal access and support when they're in an eviction, legal proceeding situation, those can make a huge difference. I had a constituent reach out recently who her property wasn't maintained all of her material belonging, by the property owner. There was a repair issue, covered in mold, all of her material possessions destroyed. She's been living there for 8 years, paying rent. She's about to lose her job, and she has no good legal recourse. And she falls between the cracks of being qualifying for different legal representation. And part of the thing that makes there not be a resource for her, or conversely, if you had a landlord who's she's the one that caused this, if you had an opposite situation and they were a lower income landlord, is that there were sunsetted dollars that used to go to legal aid that gave expansion to very successful programming that keeps people in housing, and we never backfilled that sunset on time. But from coordinating with people like Access to Justice Initiative and so many other folks and groups, they were like, hey, with $1 million, you could get these other match dollars, expand these already existing programs, scale it up. I mean, any amount, of course, would help scale it up. It's a fully vetted concept because it already happens through Legal Aid right now. It's just only catching such a narrow, if you're this % of poverty level margin, but we could help scale it or help fill in a gap for if it's outside of a certain service area even. And we know that works to keep people in housing, so it's a really good upstream solution that catches those people that are I've done everything right and then this thing happened. And then, which also, not to shame anyone who hasn't done everything right, everyone has stuff happen. And they deserve resources too, I think. But, and then the other thing that, with the sunsetting of federal LEWOP and LIHEAP, those utility bill assistance programs, we saw for that brief time when we captured those water bill dollars, what a difference those can make for people, as Councilor Bengal was mentioning. And so I would definitely be really curious to see if we can, even at least pilot doing our own just iteration of having, something that can come in, because sometimes one is just that little margin or water bill payment away from not being able to pay for something else.
The Save Our Homes Initiative, I think they need about $500,000. So.
Yeah, But yes, if we can
I think
identify these sections of
yes.
dollars, these are really high impact things that kind of fill in what you've been talking about, where you have people who just need that little lift to not fall into a really desperate situation.
And to your point, Counselor, when Counselor Dr. Wright was talking about what people might ask for, right, or what they could potentially get at the table, I did go ask after, you know, we talked about the 4 additional code enforcement officers. I did go ask the folks who do this work to see if those 4 people would legitimately be impactful in this process, and every single one that I've talked to said yes.
Well, it's better than nothing, I mean, I get
Well,
that.
of course, but I'm
It's going
just
to be an
saying-
impact.
If the intentionality of this is to move the needle from potentially 45 days and beyond and getting a case reviewed and inspected, because that's the aggravation that most of the people that I deal with from citizen complaints is, not only have they had to wait an extensive period for their case to be picked up and reviewed, more often than not, their case has been closed and they're in this repetitive cycle of having to open a case. This is why I try to drive people to the app more than anything, because they take their pictures, give me the case. If the case gets closed, at least I can go back and have that case to reference when we're asking Brent and his staff what happened in this. Because a lot of times the citizens don't know that if something is only happening between certain hours of the day, and that is not articulated in the report, our code enforcement staff most likely is gonna go out there during normal business hours, go out there, not find the violation, and off they go, and close case, right? And so that's where we end up involved in, and with the aggravated citizens. So 4, does that feel like enough? Probably not, but they say it will be impactful, and so I have to support what they're saying is legit.
Sarah?
I was just, if you're kind of finished with ideas putting out there, maybe addressing some of the specific budgetary ways that we can address some of these, or that they already have been addressed.
Right.
And so we were on code, so we'll start with code. Just a reminder, in technical changes, so there was the 4 positions, an additional position for code enforcement was restored. And then just on code enforcement philosophy and theory in general, voluntary compliance is a major focal point for our code enforcement team. And sometimes if you can get voluntary compliance, that allows you to achieve good results for the community without having to invest so many manpower resources into that. So I think this pilot of attempting to get this backlog down really does incorporate the voluntary compliance aspects of code enforcement. Some people would do the right, in fact, probably most people would do the right thing if they knew or maybe needed resources or were connected to resources. And so that, I just wanted to remind you of the technical change that is proposed to come through. So there is a little bit actually more code enforcement resources. On animals, we can definitely make sure that we're reminding the community too of not just the investment you all and this administration, the last administration made in animals, but what you did this year, but what you've done the last 5 years. There are multiple positions that have been added over the last 5 years to animal services. We've got a brand new facility coming through. We've been able to achieve donations for operations to sustain. So tons of work in spay neutering efforts, and I think there's tons of work more to come and plans. And so we can definitely help pull all that together on the investment that you have made. You all have already covered some of the concerns with enforcement regarding the small bikes, so hopefully we'll get a number there. On homelessness, some of the programs that you all are talking about can be supportive to homelessness, but they also can be prevention of homelessness. I would probably argue already in the Brown ordinance is with homelessness initiatives that maybe prevention is already included in that. But you could put a little, just if we want to be sure, you could put an indicator in the Brown ordinance that says related supports and prevention. And that way it opens that bucket up. Maybe that is the bucket, maybe it's not.
Something like that could be helpful, so that this eviction program could start going and raising the private dollars that are out there, because it just feels like we've kept waiting to make a
Right.
move forward, and we've been like,
And maybe
just-
there's another,
yeah, pausing for too
another
long.
pot of money that is more appropriate in the future, but,
Mhm.
that,
Seeds to seed it.
right, that,
Yeah, it's.
we can make that adjustment just to make that clear on
Mhm.
that. Also on the homelessness funds, small budget did discuss, since you had your presentation earlier today, about the spend rate of, reduced, so there's 6 million that's essentially for the Safe Move program. Still doing up to 6 million next year, so not changing the total. But separating those out into separate budget amendments, and so starting with 1.5 million in quarterly, coming back with those new appropriations, to see where we are on outcomes and on spend rate. And so you definitely can do that, same dollar figure, same amount, sounds very similar to maybe how the private sector donations are coming in based on the earlier discussion. And then finally, on utility billing assistance, there is another bucket of money, and again, this may not be the final bucket of money, but the 18.5 that is in that Brown ordinance, that is for economic initiative and neighborhood initiatives. Potentially that could fall under there. You would just, the council later, it's not for this budget and this appropriation, will need to develop a plan for how those funds are utilized and appropriated. Again, may not be the final bucket. I haven't done the research yet on, are there grants out there? Are there match opportunities? Are there other sources of funds? A working group will start on the utility assistance. Marissa's gonna staff that for our office, and we've already worked with Crystal Reyes to set up our first staff working group meeting, and then pull in the counselors who are interested on that, to develop that program. I think I said finally, but on the drug court, I think you covered it already. There is a new prosecutor, lots of work to be done on where court is, jail is, they're transitioning to the e-ticket system, or not the e-ticket system, but the new system, court record system as well. And so there would need to be time to program development, it's a potential opioid application going down the road, but did talk with court personnel about even connecting them with Healthy Minds is a great resource that we haven't connected yet on that type of program. So I think there's a lot of program development before that would be for this fiscal year. And that's
Okay.
it, I think.
I appreciate that. Anybody else?
Counselor Gilbert?
This was something new. We've talked about it.
Oh,
before.
I was like, I didn't write it down.
So, the Office of Family, Youth, and Children, we heard from Tulsa Public Schools that they wanted to find a way to get elementary kids more active in programs, athletic programs. If there's something that we can do to partner with, or get something going in the parks, in our Parks
I
Department.
think
to
Dr.
help.
Dodd said they had a fleshed out proposal. And that's
Okay.
sitting on I can't remember if it was Dr. Johnson or Dr. Dodd, but one
Yeah.
of them said, we built out a whole framework and a proposal, and then it didn't talk. Okay, so I think we should find out.
Yeah, I'll reach out to her.
And they also talked about transportation assistance.
Right.
Those were the two things they said specifically, I
Yeah.
think the city could help us.
And that was discussed in the cabinet meeting on Friday, was transportation. So, we didn't get anywhere with a solution, but, it was discussed, so. But if we could, I'll get with Dr. Dodd to see what.
I don't have either of those, so I don't know the volume of money they're looking for. Just to remind, when we look for reoccurring dollars, you are in the space of probably reprioritizing a different item if we're looking for reoccurring dollars.
Okay.
Counselor Bellis? Were you finished? I'm sorry, Counselor.
Going back to the framing you offered related to the ground ordinance, Sarah, I do think it would be helpful, or I would like to make that explicit piece about the prevention side, just so we're really clear. I think that kind of helps us all stay accountable to then working on those next steps related to utility assistance or these other pieces of the puzzle. So if like people are amenable to it, I think that just adding that layer of clarification makes sure that we're kind of not, you know, shortchanging ourselves later, or being too limiting or anything like that. So I like that language.
Alrighty, anybody else?
I just have a clarifying question. So given all that we just threw at you and this staff, are we discussing it today at 5 and taking some sort of action to make it happen next week, or what's the game plan here?
It's ultimately up to you all.
Yeah.
It feels like there are enough changes that since you have the extra week, nobody ever likes to make changes the day of.
Correct.
To the budget, from just an
I'm always
accuracy
willing to try.
standpoint. And we are waiting on some information too.
Okay.
And so, you can make all of those changes out for, you can decide to not go forward. If it is the general feeling, that is what is gonna happen, we can put out some messaging
Yeah,
regarding that there's potentially an intention not to
The main
vote on
concern would
budget
be
today.
citizens coming to speak.
Yeah, the
and
other
then
option.
Not getting a chance
The other
to.
option you have is you can leave it on, you can receive the comment, and then you would just not take comment the next week. That's an option as well. Good and bad to that, people may not be able to comment on changes.
And not take comment from the same people, right?
No, at that point, you would be in council discussion, so you would just be finished with public comment.
And if we can get, what is the plan?
Yeah, Robert's rules.
It says discussion
Diary's
regarding
follow.
proposal.
Please do, sir.
What is your plan for putting this on one of our committee discussions for next week? Is it earlier the better, so that legal can go back and incorporate everything that we came up with, or you have another strategy?
Oh, I would probably schedule 1 o'clock, unless I go look at calendars and there's already other things on
Okay.
1 o'clock, but.
Yeah.
You don't want to put it on at 10:30?
I would
Should we already have
likely
it?
already do some of these things to propose back on, or as soon as we have
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
So the brown ordinance, the reduction potentially, or this, more, not the reduction, this more of a scheduled approach to the safe move dollars.
Yep.
And if I get a number on the enforcement before then, we can work. The earlier the better, and whatever we can put on the table at 1 o'clock, that's closest to final would be preferable.
Yeah, I'd rather go in at 5 o'clock and say, move to approve, have Counselor Dr. Wright say if she'd like, move to approve as discussed in, or as provided in the backup material, or whatever it is, rather than go through a list of changes,
Yes.
which is tough for people to follow.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah, and Vince, thank you. To
Yeah,
those
thank
of you
you.
sitting in the room going, "Gulp," hopefully this is cleaner than the way we've had to do it in the past, which is amending on the vote.
On the fly, yeah.
Very methodical. As I will reiterate, not opposed to doing, I've done it before, but this is a lot more than we've done in the past.
Just remember at 4, unless you give different direction now, we need to decide if we're gonna take public comment on the budget tonight, or if that needs to be on the 17th.
Seems like the 17th is more comprehensive for the public to even weigh in.
That makes sense.
Okay.
It's more fair to them to know what they're actually commenting on.
Then if that's just, I'm gonna make a decision on my own to
Sure.
post some material out there for the public.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty,
Thank you, Sarah.
any further questions, comments? Alrighty, we are adjourned.
Romance and the reality of the oil boom. Next,